Hello everyone and welcome back guys to AOR Season 14 F2 Round 9. And I can't believe, we're already nearly halfway through this season. But once again, I'm not really going to bother with my qualifying lap. It was nothing special, and once again I find myself qualifying outside of the top 10 and hoping that, I can try and take myself on an alternate strategy to fight my way up through the field. So what we're going to do then, we're going to go on a set of these soft tyres for the start of the Grand Prix. Take them as far as they'll go and then hope that we can try and take Ultra Softs right through to the very end of the race. But we should wait and see how well this does fare. But Austria, one of my favourite tracks on the Formula 1 calendar, so hoping, today that we can get off to a very, very good result. I'm up to P5, I think, overall in the standings after, a really, really good last 4 rounds. So hopefully we can continue scoring points today. But it's 5 lights on the grid then, ready for the Austrian Grand Prix, and it is lights out. And away we go, and actually off to a fairly poor start. They're not really getting any good sort of decent run towards turn 1. They were going to try and keep it clean though to the outside. Poodle, not really too sure where he wants to go into the corner there. Herschel gets caught on the inside. LGS bins it out in front there. We're now pushing Poodle on the exit of the corner. They're trying to, not end up right behind him, get locked to his rear end here. So I'm going to try and make it 3 wide up in towards turn 2 here. I'm going to try and brake just that little bit later than the 2 ahead of me there. Completely squeeze out Poodle on the exit. TRL Ellis has been taken up by Nopals there, and somehow I find myself making up even more positions there, up into P7 of the Grand Prix, albeit, we are side by side with VRT Herschel there. He's going to try and hold it down the inside in towards the next corner there. We're just going to try and get the run on the exit of the corner. It will turn to the inside in towards the double left-hander here, but are we going to be able to hold it down the inside? Yes, we do. Understeer ever so slightly out in towards him, but we do give him the room on at the exit there, and through the second part, Herschel going to back out of it nice and early there, fairly sensibly from him. You don't really want to be going for too many risky moves at the start of the Grand Prix. He thinks about having a look down the inside in towards the final couple of corners, but we're quite committed very, very late on the brakes there. We do hold on to P7 for now in the Grand Prix, so somehow, out of all of that, 5 places made up on the first lap of the Grand Prix, and we're on a much harder compound of tyres here, so this was looking alright for myself in the early stages of the race. Potentially we can try and hold on to, these positions, more so, hold on to the race leaders. This would be quite good for myself, but these soft tyres, in hindsight, probably not the greatest things in the world in the early stages of the race. You can see, as we move on to lap 5, VRT Herschel going to send one down the inside there. We tried to go for a bit of an undercut on him there. Unfortunately, get a double lockup through at the corner and just not a particularly good run on the exit there. So we do now move down into P8 of the Grand Prix. But, all these guys are going to have to pit around at lap 10 or lap 11 of the Grand Prix. So hopefully, if we could try and hold on to him until about then maybe, we could still be in a strong position towards the second half of this Grand Prix. And by lap 10, as I said, you can see Herschel probably pulled out about a second over myself here, but he's going to have to dive it into the pits on the end of this lap. I think he is one of the only, front runners there that actually do opt to dive it into the pits on the end of that lap. I think it's him and Midget both opt to go in. Midget decided rather oddly he would go for the tube-stop Grand Prix today, which I don't think really was going to be a particularly brilliant strategy for him, but he was on a pad, so tyre wear nice, non-existent wear on them. You can see skipping on 1 lap later though, Coldhead, my teammate, in the Sister Williams car there, unfortunately having a little bit of a scrap with, I think that was Franglish actually, just ahead of him there. So now, he's on really, really worn set of tyres here. We're on, a fairly worn set of the soft tyres here, but these should have a lot more grip, another sort of 10, 15 laps potentially. So we sort of didn't really want to have to fight Coldhead too much. We've had quite a few battles over the last few weeks actually. We obviously went side by side for the first half a lap at Monaco, which I don't think really we can say went particularly well. We both survived just about, I think is the only way to describe it. And then also at Canada, we had some good little battling, which overall I think, went a little bit safer for the pair of us here. But I don't really want to have to be fighting my teammate too much this season. We are, I think, very, very close on points though. He was up in P3 coming into this Grand Prix, and I was down in P5, about 12 points behind him. So that, there is a little bit of, number 1 and number 2 driver at stake in this Grand Prix as well. So we shall wait and see what does happen with that. But Coldhead a little bit all over the shop as he comes down in towards the final couple of corners here. He does signal to me that he's going to dive it into the pits on the end of the start. Brakes way too late down into the final corner there. We're going to have to try and make sure that we don't end up colliding with him as he then rejoined the track and dived it into the pit lane there. But now up into P3 and now up into the lead of the Grand Prix as everyone else does opt to make their first pit stop of the Grand Prix. So these next few laps are going to be absolutely crucial for me, just try and, keep up the momentum in this race and just see where it did spit us out when we finally opted to make our pit stops. EVR CJ there one of the new EVR recruits, doing very, very well up in P2 as well in the Grand Prix. So we were both going for a bit of an alternate strategy. But unfortunately, by about lap 20, as I said previously, these tyres really started to grain a little bit poorly. It was quite painful. I'm not going to lie, to try and drive on them. But realistically, you know, hindsight's a wonderful thing. I would have potentially considered doing a double super soft, then ultra soft stint, or even, you know, a double ultra soft, super soft stint in this Grand Prix. But unfortunately, Die Hard Fan retires from the Grand Prix. He was set to score 1 solitary point in this race, I think, so a little bit unfortunate for him. But by the end of lap 24, we're going to dive it in to the pit lane there, doing a bit of a better job than my teammate Coldhead did there as we come into the pits. But Xfitcho Bobbits and Sam F1 LFC were all over the back of me by the time I'd made it into the pits. So 11 racing laps to go. We had, you know, a near enough fresh set of the much quicker tyres to try and last me right through to the very end of the Grand Prix. It was going to be interesting to see how well we did fare towards the end of this race. It's going to be more interesting to see where we do actually come out after our pit stops there. Unfortunately, you know, everyone's obviously going to be able to undercut me from the earlier pit stops there, and we come out just behind LGS there. So P7 in the Grand Prix. It was looking like points where, you know, it was going to be more of a matter of how many points could we score towards the end of this Grand Prix over whether we could score any at all. You know, only 10 drivers left in this race if you include TRL Ellis's disconnected car. But LGS was the first man on the old hit list here as we come onto lap 26 of the Grand Prix. Didn't really want to have to try and lose too much time behind him. I think LGS sort of accepted, you know, he didn't want to lose too much time behind myself either there. So we tried to have a think about the outside in towards turn 5 there, but no chance we were going to be able to make the position stick there. But through turn 6, in towards the final couple of corners there, LGS actually pulls to the inside there, lets me through quite nicely there, so can't thank him enough for that one. You know, made it far easier than I ever really expected him to. And now up into P6 of the Grand Prix once more. And next up on the hit list was VRT Herschel there, but Midget actually dives it back into the pit lane once more. So now up into P5 of the Grand Prix here, and this was looking quite handy for myself. You know, potentially a podium was on the card in this Grand Prix, but we shall wait and see. And as now, as we skip on to lap 28, as I was saying, you know, we're next up having to try and close up to VRT Herschel there, but he dives it into the pit lane as well. They're not really too sure why he opted to dive it into the pit lane there, because he seemed fairly safe in the position he was in. So hey ho, you know, it's a free position for me. I don't have to fight him on track, so, you know, we will quite happily go along with that one. Now up into P4 of the Grand Prix, and next up was Franglish, even further up the road, you know, another sort of 10-15 seconds ahead of me here. So it was going to be quite tough, you know, in these last few laps to, you know, try and close up to him. I think by now the gap was down to about 10 seconds, but the top 3 were fighting here. But unfortunately for me, I get caught out by the lovely space hop curve, as I'm going to call it there. And that sent me half spun, you know, unfortunately cost me the position to LGS there. Just about come out back ahead of Mighty Midget there, who we, you know, really want to try and jump in the point standings after this Grand Prix. So now back up into P5 of the Grand Prix there. Not exactly the ideal position to be in there, but I will tell you now, Midget, unfortunately, his tyres, and he had another couple of issues outside of the game, meant that he unfortunately couldn't really hassle me too much towards the end of the Grand Prix. And really, the final piece of pressure actually came from VRT Herschel here. Turns out, you know, that final pit stop actually did pay dividends for him as we come down in towards the final couple of corners of this Grand Prix. I was having to try and defend as much as I possibly could here. Herschel in towards the final couple of corners. So you can see twitching in my rear view mirrors there. We think about going a bit defensive there, but unfortunately for him, he has cost himself a bit of time through the final couple of corners of the Grand Prix. Franglish is going to come through to take home his first AOR victory since Season 8. LGS there has binned it as we come out of the final corner. Not really too sure what has happened to him, and unfortunately, due to the penalties, LGS did actually come through for P5 in the end. P4 in the end. We came through in a P5 by the end of that Grand Prix, so, you know, still a decent result for myself there. You can see at the end, as I said, Franglish able to take home the race victory there after a late incident between Sam F1 LFC and XRL Bobbits. Unfortunately, it left them a little bit further down. Oh, what it could have been for me if we hadn't have had that incident towards the end. It could have been P3 right, you know, right at the very end there. And unfortunately, if we had even just not track extended as much as we did, it could have still been P3. But that's racing at the end of the day, and, you know, a little bit unlucky to not score so many points there. I do move up now into P4 in the standings there. I'm now ahead of Midget. We're tied on points, but I've had one race victory to his 0. So I'm up now into P4, 2 points behind my teammate Coldhead as well. So hopefully, you know, if we could get P3 in AOR F2, I'd be quite happy with that result in the end there. But thank you all so much for watching. Do not forget to like, subscribe if you have enjoyed these highlights videos, and I will see you guys next time for a brand new video.